Hello, my name is Jane Thompson-Webb. I'm Collection Services Manager at Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery, and in the normal world that means I'm Head of Conservation. I've been a practicing conservator now for 16 years. I'm an accredited conservator restorer, and at Birmingham I have responsibility for our emergency response plan, amongst other things. So what is an emergency response plan and why do you need one? Well, to do them backwards, if you're an accredited museum, as part of the accreditation standard, you are now required to have an emergency response plan. But what is it? In the old days we called them disaster plans, but we've moved away from that a little bit now to try and make the point that it can be a plan that's more useful to you, whatever the scale of your emergency. It doesn't have to be that a 747 has dropped onto your museum. The idea of an emergency plan is that it helps you to manage an incident effectively. It removes people running around with everybody trying to do the same thing, so you set up a chain of command so that everybody knows who's in control. It enables you to know who the fire services are going to be talking to, who is going to be dealing with any media interest, who is going to be looking after the welfare of the staff that you have. It should contain a list of useful contacts. Some of those will be staff, so that you know how to get hold of people in the middle of the night. Some of them will be useful contractors and suppliers to you. It's generally recommended that you try and have some emergency stores, but it's very difficult to keep enough equipment on site to deal with whatever the incident is that occurs. So it's useful to have places where you can get scrubber dryers, where you can get polythene, where you can get plastic boxes from very quickly. You may have a building with a very large tower, so you might want to have a steeplejack contact. It needs to be relevant for you. Also in an emergency plan, it's very important that you should have floor plans from your building, and they should include information about gas and electricity shut-offs. They should show where fire points are. They should show routes through the building so that if the main entrance is not available, the emergency services know how to get in by some other route. Also in that plan, it's very useful to have a list of the objects that are really key to your museum. And that's particularly important if you're a small institution, because we know that 90% of all businesses affected by fire never reopen. So at least if you can have the core of your collection, at least you can have it in a shop window somewhere. But people need to know what those objects are and where they are and how they need to be rescued. The emergency services now are becoming increasingly interested in heritage and in becoming involved in emergency plans. So we need to help them as much as possible, so that if you have a painting on the wall, you need to tell them, yeah, you just put a crowbar in at this point and this point, but you do know it will need 3 people to take it out. So those kinds of things you should include. You should not make it too big a document, because if you do, no one's going to look at it. It's going to be a panic situation where you come to use it, and if it's a lever arch file with 30 subdividers in it, no one is going to find the information that you want in that kind of situation. So keep it as small as you can, in as clear a font as you can, and make sure the information is kept basic. The other thing that's really important about emergency plans is that you need to make sure that they are live and current. It's very tempting to say, oh, it's another document I have to complete for accreditation. Right, it's done, it's on the shelf, I can tick the box. And you never look at it again. But you need to make sure that contact details are kept up to date, that floor plans are kept up to date, galleries change, you build new bits on, you have the rewiring done and sockets changed. So you need to make sure that all of that information is kept up to date, so that if an emergency happens, it's actually accurate and it can be useful to you. There's a temptation to want to have an easy template for an emergency plan, and although they can be useful, it may mean that you're not recording information that's really pertinent to your institution. So although you can talk to people about what to include, I would suggest, if at all possible, that you tailor a plan to your own institution. If you do want a basic and you are concerned about having something to start you off, the East Midlands have produced a very useful set of information about producing emergency plans. They have a scheme called REDS, which is their emergency planning service, and there's a CD that you can get through the East Midlands MLA, it is now, and they will send you out a CD. There's also a lot of information on the internet Again, if you are struggling with that, good people to talk to are your museum development officers or your county museum officers, depending on how your area is set up, and they will help you and give you some advice and support. Your accreditation advisor will also offer you some advice on what to do with emergency plans.